I need to stop being weird. Okay, look, for anybody who's watching the replay, whenever this publishes or whatever, I'm so sorry. You do not deserve that. um, I'm not really doing anything this live stream. I mean, I am, but you guys won't be able to see it because I'm doing it off camera, obviously. I am currently finishing up some homework that is due tomorrow. Why did I wait so long to do it? I don't know. But, yeah. Nothing that interesting. And once I finish this, then I'll probably clean up the room and let you guys talk for a little bit while I do that. I think that's about it. Who is that? Somebody's on here. Hello, hi. Sorry, I'm a little behind. Or not behind, I'm looking at a lot of stuff right now. Okay. First, I drew everything in pencil as a poor sketch as an example of what I wanted my drawing to look like. Once I got approval, I started sketching a lot better. I started sketching a better version of the beginning on fresh paper. Okay. Then I started drawing the background as the first sketch just had the characters. Then I started drawing. Oh, I hate homework. I mean, it's for English class, so it's not that bad. It's better than doing math. So I'm not really complaining that much. And then I started drawing the quote-unquote cat house and decorating and outlining. Yeah, I think that's about it. Nothing really besides that. Okay. What is not in the project that you wish you included? I don't know, bro. You asking all this. I'm a candy beginner. Congratulations. Ow, my hand. What is something I could have included? I didn't. Oh shoot. I didn't have a black marker. A thin black marker. I did not. Hold on. Let me rewrite that. Do you like Taco Bell? It's alright. I don't get it all the time. It's been a while since I've had Taco Bell, actually. I think my parents just stopped going there. I did not. What was I gonna say? I did not have access to a thin black marker so I could outline. So a good amount of my items appear thicker than they should be. I should probably make a sticker. Hold on 1 second. That way we don't lose people. Okay, there we go. Set that up. I went to talk about when we ordered a Mountain Dew. Fair enough. Had I had one at the time, I feel as if my project would have come out a lot better. Let's put some emphasis on a lot. Control I. There we go. Mono, what's up? What's going on? Alright, What do you wish you left out of the project? As said in my previous sentence, I feel like if I didn't use that thick black marker, it would have come out better. Let me see, I gotta capitalize that I. I'm gonna do a lot of spell checks. I said my previous sentence, I feel like I didn't use that thick black marker, it would have come out better. Some of the lines, some of the outlining is faded, but I cannot really complain as I came to class unprepared. Parentheses, when it came to art supplies. I should probably buy some art supplies now that I think about it. Go to Dollar Tree or something, spend like $10 and get some cheap stuff. Okay, yeah, I think that's it. What other obstacles stood in your way? I don't know. The deadline, I guess. Other obstacles. Welcome back, Cozy. Other obstacles that almost stood in my way. Hold on. Emphasis on almost. Control I. That almost stood in my way. Could have been the deadline. As I completely forgot. Why can I not type? Completely forgot to write this conclusion. As you can see, it's done now, comma, and should be over 300 words. Or so I hope. Might that have been filler? Possibly. Alright, let's see. I chose to focus on what happens to Lenny at the end of the book because it's sad. Hold on, let me fix that. It's because it's sad and pretty much shows how nobody will really care that you're gone unless you benefited them personally. Because I feel that Lenny was mistreated, I used the perspective of the other characters after the incident to show how they really felt about Lenny. To show this, me and insert name here decided to draw a decided to draw this in a Scooby-Doo format. I did the part where the gang is seen walking towards / sitting in front of the cat house. I did not place Lenny anywhere on the paper, not even as a ghost, truly to prove that they truly did not care or think about him in the slightest. I think that the easiest part was designing the house for this project. I tried to make it seem seriously weird but creative, given that I've never watched typo. Given that I've never watched the show. The hardest part was designing the characters because I'm not good at drawing human anatomy. First, I drew everything in pencil as a poor sketch as an example of what I wanted. That's too many as-ands. First, I drew everything in pencil. Let me get rid of that comma. Everything in pencil is a poor sketch to use as and. That's still too many as-ands. To use, for example. There we go. To use, for example. First, I drew everything in pencil as a poor sketch. To use, for example. What I wanted my drawing to look like. Once I got approval, I started sketching a better version of the beginning. I started sketching the beginning. Whoa, okay, hold on. I started sketching a better version of the first sketch on fresh paper. There we go. Okay. Then I started drawing the background as the first sketch just had the characters I wanted to use. Then I started drawing the cat house and decorating and outlining. I feel like I used so many commas. Then I started drawing the cat house. I don't need a and since there's a comma. I started drawing the cat house, decorating and outlining. I did not have access to a thin black marker so I could outline, so a good amount of my items appear thicker than they should be. Had I had one at the time, I feel as if my project would have come out a lot better. As said in my previous sentence, I feel like if I didn't use that thick black marker, it would have come out better. Some of the outlining is faded, but I cannot really complain as I came to class unprepared when it came to art supplies. Other obstacles that almost stood in my way could have been the deadline. Could have been, that should be been. Could have been the deadline, as I completely forgot to write this conclusion. As you can see, it's done now and should be over 300 words, or so I hope. And now that I've gone over it myself, spell check. Spell check's good. Okay. All right, now I just gotta do this. So let's see the word count. You guys think I'm over 300? This is supposed to be 300 words. Let's see. Yes! Yes! Wait, hold on. What is that? I'm not fixing that. Okay, 363 words. So I went over the requirement. So I'm safe. Awesome. Okay. I did the words. I did the writing convention. I already checked for grammar and spelling. I made the connection to the book. I think. Yeah. Okay. I made a connection to the book, and I have my attention to theme reflection. I can explain why I chose that part. I already did that, I think. And several graphics or objects using the... Okay. I don't know about several, but hey. It's done. It's out of the way. Now let me check iExcel real quick. Make sure I don't got any math work. Because I'm not trying to do anything for her class right now. Still probably going to have to, because I don't feel like doing it in school tomorrow either. I have a doctor's appointment. My hands hurt. I got no work on iExcel. Let's go. All right, so since that's done, and I already turned in my other assignment that I was working on in class, I should be all set. So all I gotta do now... Huh? Wait, what? I'm so confused. That's not important. I don't care about that. I don't know who your friend is. I don't care about your friend. Anyways. Homework is complete. So now, I'm gonna clean and you guys are gonna chat with each other for a little bit. Let me read this real quick. Because I missed a lot. Where was I? Right here. I mean, I'm lazy. Did you call me lazy? Wow. I'm so honored. Okay, Cozy. Hi, Basie. I'm not trying to pronounce that name. I feel like I've seen you somewhere. 236 subscribers? Holy cow. Nice job. What happened to Gabs, by the way? Since her channel was deleted, and I feel like I remember her telling me she has a new account. She does. She has a new account. I thought I tagged her before. I tagged her in one of Mouthwash's posts where she asked. It's in the community, though. You gotta look for it. What's the animal you searched up on your latest video? It wasn't an animal. It was the attack victims. I'm not giving you that either way. That's terrible. I saw a post about you asking where Gabs was. Yeah, I posted it in the comments. It's really long. When I tried to search it, I got nothing. She probably changed it, maybe. I don't know. Hold on one. Hi guys. What's happening here? Was that unnecessary? Yeah. Do I care? Nah, not really. I'll make her like me. What are you talking about, bro? What's happening? I'm so confused. I require context. Anyways, I'm going to get started. Also, my aunt never came and got the stuff. She told me when I got off the bus, when I got off the bus, she was like, hey, insert name here. I'm gonna come buy that candy from you in a few minutes. I'm gonna be right back. It's almost 10 o'clock. Right, no, hold on. Wait, what time is it now? Yeah, it's 10 o'clock. It's 10:03. And she never came. She said that at, like, what? I think 3 this afternoon. It's been more than a couple minutes, I think. Anyways. I'm probably just going to bring it to her when I go to her salon on Thursday. Which means I'm most likely going to see the people at the Five Below. If you've been keeping up with me, which I don't really expect you to, When I go to the salon, I tend to go to the Five Below because some of the workers there I've become well acquainted with, and I tend to give them candy from time to time. So, what did you say? I missed it. I said something. What do you mean? What? I'm so confused. My dad won't let me collect soda tabs anymore. So if I get soda tabs, it has to come off my stuff. I told him, I said, "Can I see your can? What do you need it for?" Candy. Oh no, don't let her steal the bottle tabs. They're not bottle tabs. They're can tabs or whatever they call it. Pop tabs? I don't know. But they're not called bottle tabs. Don't lie, I see message retracted. I'm gonna put that right there. I can't find Gab's new account. They'll probably be here soon. I don't know if they use that account really. I'll be right back. Hold on. I'll just leave this here, I guess.
On this channel, I've made many chemicals, and some of them have smelled really nice, like grape or wintergreen, and others have smelled terrible, like putrescine or scatol. And in theory, I could have used any of these to make a perfume, or I could have mixed them all together to make some sort of disgusting creation. However, I thought that maybe it could be fun to make a completely new one, and I decided to go with raspberry ketone. Raspberry ketone occurs naturally in red raspberries, and it's a major component of their smell. The amount in the raspberries, though, is really small, and it's estimated that 1 kilo of raspberries might only contain a few milligrams of it. This makes extracting it extremely inefficient and way too expensive to use in things like candy or food. This isn't really much of an issue, though, because with chemistry, we can often just disregard nature and build the molecules ourselves. And like with many other flavors, fragrances, and pharmaceuticals, the building process usually starts with some sort of cheap petroleum product. For any given molecule, there are many ways that it can be built, but for raspberry ketone, this seems to be the common pathway. It starts with benzene, which is derived from crude oil, and with every step, the raspberry ketone molecule is slowly put together. This is a really long and labor intensive process, though, and when producing it industrially, nobody's going to be starting with benzene. Like with most other syntheses, they'll start with the cheapest mass produced precursor that's closest to the final molecule. In this case, it's often 4-hydroxybenzaldehyde, so that's what I'm going to be starting with. As usual, I tried my best to find an easy online source for this chemical, but unfortunately, I wasn't able to find a single place. So I didn't really have a choice, and I ended up having to order it from Sigma. Before I get started, though, I did just want to say that making the raspberry ketone myself was definitely not the most efficient way to make it. The entire point of this project was to just explore the chemistry and the science behind its production, and I thought that making it myself could just be something fun to do. Unlike the 4-hydroxybenzaldehyde, the raspberry ketone's actually quite easy to buy online. There are a lot of places that sell it for cheap, but it's not meant to be used in food or perfumes or anything else like that. It's instead sold as a weight loss supplement, but as far as I know, as with many other weight loss supplements, there's no evidence to support that it works. However, it was convenient for me to have an easy and pure source of the ketone, and you'll see later on in the video how I take advantage of this. But anyway, with that being said, we can finally get started. The first step was to make a dilute solution of sodium hydroxide, so I added about 4 grams.
Okay, what did I miss? Where was I? I already saw that message. I call them soda tabs. Okay, yeah. See, that's better than bottle tabs. There's no tab on a bottle. There's a bottle cap, but I don't. Anyways, I'm divorcing you again. What? Hi, Moss. Hello. How are you doing, Sigma? I'm awesome to be real with you. I love the fan art you made for Mono. I too love the fan art that was made for Mono. Mono really does appreciate it. This is unfair. Cozy, I can give you the thing after stream. I don't understand. Like, bro, I understand that you guys have like a friendship with them, but maybe they're busy with life. Because they haven't really been commenting on my videos either. They're probably taking a break or something. I would too if I lost my whole account. I mean, not like a full break, but they're probably busy. life gets lifing sometimes, you know? But that's not my place to assume. I don't know what's going on with Gabs. They'll probably come back soon. But if you guys really want to talk to them, I'll probably tag them later. I forgot to tag myself. I know it's like something crack pipe concerning username, but you know. Yeah, I know, but I was just really scared when I couldn't see any messages from her. Oh, wait, what? You guys text each other? How did you guys get in a okay. You know what? Not my business. Well, am I gonna do stuff? Okay. See you later. Thank you for stopping by. Ow. I want to do another candy trade so bad. She said she didn't know you streamed. Oh, dang. I mean, even then, she doesn't really comment on my YouTube videos anymore. I don't know. No, because she's been tagging me and stuff. I've seen it. She's been tagging me. I got a couple. Hold on, wait. I'll be right back. Somebody make a YouTube comment on my newest post so I can leave this stream thing real quick. Because I got tagged in a post, like, I think, what? Was it today? Was it yesterday? I forgot. You got tagged too, Mouth. Oh, wait a minute. Mouthwash. The reason you can't get in is because your original account isn't there. Right? Hold on, wait, no. Is it your alternate account or your main account? She tagged me too. Oh. So why can't you provide the username? Just type it in chat. If you already got tagged. I don't understand you.
Over the course of about 10 minutes.
So
when
heavy.
it looked like it was dying,
hello,
it was time to
Mallory.
get rid of all
Welcome
the
back.
water, and I did this by vacuum filtration. So I turned on my vacuum pump
I'm gonna
and
set
I
that right
started
there.
adding the mixture.
Yeah.
When everything had been pulled through, I washed
You can
it
just
through
copy
and
it. You don't gotta.
with some more
Oh my
water.
god, mouthwash.
Then I turned on my pump again, and I let it run for a couple minutes. I was eventually left with a reddish-brown, semi-dry powder, but it was still really impure. To clean it up, I just had to recrystallize it, so I poured it all into a beaker. Then I added a somewhat arbitrary amount of water, and I turned on the stirring and heating. As it warmed up and got closer to the boiling point, more and more solid
There's so
dissolved,
much candy in
and it
here,
took
it's
on this
ridiculous.
green color. Also, at some point, all the solid had melted, and it became an oily.
You don't gotta search up her username. If you got tagged in the post, right?
But to get the rest,
Just click
I
her
had to start adding
notification or
more water.
whatever, click her
I
profile
ended up adding
picture,
quite a bit,
and then
it
click
was
her
running
handle,
pretty
and it
good,
should give you an
but
option to
there was
copy it.
still a small
You don't
amount
gotta sit
left.
there and type out the whole
I
thing.
wanted it to be nice and clear, but this would require adding more water, and I worried it wouldn't fit in the beaker. So I just quickly transferred it to a larger flask, and then continued adding more. It did end up clearing up completely, but it also didn't take that much more water, so probably everything would have fit in the beaker, but oh well. I then took it off the hot plate, pulled out my stir bar, and waited for it to cool down. When I came back the next day, I had a lot of nice whitish yellow crystals, but there was also a lot of this nasty junk on the bottom. All that stuff is just a mixture of the product, as well as tar and other things, and it's gonna have to be processed again. The fluffy crystals, though, are still good, and they can just be filtered off. And I did this just like before, using my vacuum filter. And after all the water was pulled through, I washed it with more water, and I left the pump on for a few minutes to dry it up as much as possible. I'm not sure why, but by the time I was done with it, it wasn't white anymore, and it had turned yellow. I then dumped it onto some paper to dry, and at this point, it even looked orange, but by the next day, it was back to being a pale yellow. In total here, my yield was about 3 grams, which was a bit low for this reaction. Also, the purity of the stuff here was decent, but it wasn't as good as I would have liked, so I wanted to clean it up a bit more. First, though, I wanted to see if I could increase my yield by getting more product out of the tar jar.
Alright, bro, we
and
get
I'll
it.
come back to this in a bit. All of the tar had solidified, and it was only loosely stuck to the bottom, so it was pretty easy to scrape off. To get it all out, I ended up having to wash the flask a few times with water, and all of these washings were added to a beaker. The heating was turned on, and like before, I kept adding small amounts of water. Eventually,
Oh, wait a minute, I still
dissolved,
have that in
but
here?
there was still some stubborn tar at the bottom
I forgot about
didn't seem
that.
to disappear even when I added more water.
What
So
do
I
I do
decided
with
to
it?
get rid
Ew,
of it,
what is
and I did this by pouring
that?
everything into another beaker and doing my best
Why is
to
it
not include
yellow?
the tar. I then added a
Why
bit
is
more
it
water and brought it
squishy?
to a boil, and I was
Is it
left
supposed
with
to
a
do that?
crystal clear
Oh.
solution. This was taken off the hot plate and the stir bar was removed,
Looks
and I waited for it to cool
delicious.
to room temperature. I ended up leaving it overnight, and when I came back the next day, I saw that some really nice crystals had formed. Unfortunately, though, there was still a decent amount of tar junk at the bottom. But thankfully, it was pretty easy to separate from the crystals,
How do
and I just had to
open it?
shake it around a bit.
Oh, the Ziploc bag is ripped.
I then filtered it off and dried it like we saw before.
Oh, actually, it doesn't smell that bad.
I was able to
It doesn't
recover
smell bad at
another
all.
gram of the product,
I'm
which
shocked.
was pretty significant considering
Okay,
my
well,
initial yield was only 3.
We're gonna
Now,
leave
the
that right
total amount
there.
that I had was 4 grams, but like I said before, it wasn't as pure as I would have liked, so I had to clean it up a bit. To do this, I had to do another recrystallization, but this time, instead of just using water, I decided to try a mixture of water and ethanol. I started by adding a somewhat random amount of ethanol, and then I turned on the stirring and heating, and I waited for it to get to a boil. The raspberry ketone and most of the impurities are much more soluble in ethanol, so this time they dissolved relatively quickly. When it eventually got to a boil a few minutes later, I started adding water to knock down the solubility. The basic goal here was to keep adding the water in small portions until the product was just barely soluble in the boiling solution. When I eventually got to what I felt was a good balance between the ethanol and the water, I took it off the hot plate. I
Oh my
took
god.
out the stir bar and let it cool, and several hours later, I had these nice white crystals. At the bottom, though, I unfortunately still had some tar. But in any case, I just swirled it around like before to separate the crystals, and I filtered them off. I let them dry for about a day or so, and I was left with 3.75 grams. This was definitely way more pure than before, but it still looked like there was a bit of orange stuff in it. But despite this, it was more than pure enough for the next step, so I decided to move on. What I thought was interesting was, as I mentioned before, this molecule is extremely close to raspberry ketone. However, despite just being one double bond away, it really had no smell to it. The next reaction that I had to do was known as a reduction, and to do it, I needed hydrogen gas. However, I didn't just have a tank of it lying around or something, and I had to make it myself. In a lab setting, there are several ways that this can be done, but I found that for me, the easiest one was always just to mix sodium hydroxide drain cleaner with aluminum foil. This was the setup that I put together, which at first might look a bit complicated, but it's really not that bad. The basic idea is that the flask is filled with aluminum foil, and then above this, I've attached an addition funnel. And in this funnel is a whole bunch of concentrated sodium hydroxide solution, so when it's open, it'll all start dripping on the aluminum foil. When they come into contact, they'll start to react, and they'll produce hydrogen gas, which will be pushed out of the flask. It'll then move through the flask trap, which I filled with calcium chloride. The calcium chloride is a dehydrated salt, and it'll pull a lot of the water from the hydrogen as it passes over it. This will by no means completely dry the hydrogen, but it should take away most of the moisture. After generating a decent amount of hydrogen and letting all of the air get pushed out of the system, I attached a balloon. When it got to a decent size, I took it off and I sealed it by just wrapping it around a glass stopper. Then I attached another balloon and kept collecting the hydrogen. One thing that I do want to mention, though, is the major downside of this reaction, which is that aluminum and sodium hydroxide generate a lot of heat when they react. This means that as the reaction continues, things get hotter and hotter, and more water is passed over with the hydrogen. For the most part, the calcium chloride does a decent job at picking this up, but it can very easily get overwhelmed. To deal with this, one relatively easy method is to just put a condenser above the flask to try to recondense as much of the water as possible. I went for the even easier method though, which was just to occasionally cool the flask with a bit of cold water in a bowl.
Coach presents how to draft the first solo day.
In the garbage. And soaking up. So I can get it out without cutting myself.
Shop for all occasions at Coach.com.
We're gonna get
I keep Healthy Choice Simply Steamers on hand at all times. The grilled chicken and broccoli Alfredo has 28 grams of protein and is half the price of any cow.
Kickstart your morning with all-in-one symptom relief. Relief starts with a kick.
Oh my gosh.
Wipes and cleanser can irritate your sensitive skin. Switch to Garnier Micellar Cleansing Water all-in-one. Gently cleanse, remove makeup without harsh rubbing. Soothe and hydrate. From the #1 micellar brand in America by Garnier.
There.
Polybugs. Chat with AI friends. Try it now.
But anyway, I was now ready. I was able to move on to the actual reaction. Into a flask, I added all the ingredients that I made before, along with some ethyl acetate. I then turned on the stirring, and when it all dissolved, I added 4 grams of anhydrous sodium acetate. I actually made this myself by mixing vinegar with baking soda, boiling off the water, and then drying the powder that was left over. This isn't soluble in ethyl acetate though, and it just has to be kept in suspension with strong stirring. Then on top of all of this, I added 0.4 grams of something called palladium on carbon. This is the active catalyst for the reduction reaction, and like the sodium acetate, it isn't soluble, so it's just kept in suspension. Now with everything added, it was time to put together the rest of the setup. This is the way that I like to put together. It's just based on the glassware that I have available.
Ow.
The piece that I'm adding here has 2 adapters that I
What
can
was
attach
that?
a
What
hose
did I just
to,
slap my
and
foot
it's hard
on?
to see at the top, but it's sealed with a stopper. All of the glass joints are also sealed with grease to make sure that there aren't any
What
leaks.
was that?
Then to the
There's
lower
nothing even
adapter,
sharp over
I
here.
attached a hose that led to a vacuum
Ow.
pump. And to the other end, I
Ow.
put on a
Okay.
hose that led to a
Hold on.
hydrogen
Give me a
balloon.
second.
I also attached some plastic clips to all
I
the
don't
joints
care about your
to make
Twitch.
sure that they didn't pop apart. Okay, so at this
Like I
point,
just cut my
things were
toe,
looking
bro.
pretty good. But before I could get started, there was just one last thing that I had to do. I made
Oh,
sure
hold
the
on. Let me
valves
get rid
were
of that. I don't need that
closed,
anymore.
and I opened up the
Oops.
vacuum one, and I turned on
My
my
bad.
pump. I let it go for a few minutes to pull as good of a vacuum as possible, and then I shut the valve. Now with the whole system under vacuum, I opened
What does
the valve to
magniloquent
the
even
balloon,
mean,
and
bro?
I filled it with
Cheese.
hydrogen.
Man, I
When
love
the balloon
cheese.
stopped
Cheese is
shrinking, I
great.
closed the valve again, and then I opened up the one to my vacuum pump, and I pulled another vacuum. This whole cycle was repeated 2 more times, just to make sure that there was no air in the system. This is extremely important, because if there's any oxygen present, the palladium on carbon can sometimes ignite the hydrogen. And if there's enough, and this happens in a closed system, it can lead to a pretty nasty explosion. I did my cycles by filling it with hydrogen, but generally, it is better to use nitrogen.
Right, but like, what does the word mean? I've never heard that word.
My cycles and flushed it every time with nitrogen. Then, as a final fourth one, I would have pulled out all the nitrogen with my vacuum and filled it with hydrogen.
I mean, I
That
probably
method
have
is
heard of it
technically
before, but I
safer
don't
because there's never
know
any
the
risk
meaning.
of having hydrogen and oxygen
And that
in
worries
the
me.
system
I
at the
think I
same
might be
time.
sick.
However, my vacuum pump is decent enough, and I've never really had an issue just cycling it with hydrogen. But anyway, after pulling a vacuum on my system for the 3rd time, I opened the valve to my balloon, and I just kept it like that. At this point, it doesn't really look like much is happening, but the reaction is occurring. The palladium on carbon, which is basically just palladium dispersed on carbon powder, is catalyzing the breakdown of the hydrogen and its addition to the intermediate molecule. As this happened, the hydrogen was slowly absorbed and the balloon shrank. Most of the hydrogen eventually disappeared, so I shut the valve, took off the balloon, and replaced it with a fresh one.
Over there.
Under normal conditions, hydrogen gas exists as H2, and it's not that reactive. The bond between the hydrogen atoms is relatively stable, and it doesn't really want to break apart and react with other things. So to make this happen, energy needs to be put in to break these atoms apart, which is why it doesn't just spontaneously burst into flames in air, and it needs some sort of ignition source. For most reactions, though, we don't really want to deal with any fires or explosions, and we want the most mild conditions possible. And this is exactly where palladium on carbon and other related catalysts come in. In the presence of the metal catalyst, the hydrogen bond spontaneously breaks apart, and each individual atom attaches to the surface of
No,
the metal.
Daniel, leave the beads
This
alone.
metal can also associate itself with a double bond and coordinate that to its surface as well.
So weird.
And one by one, it transfers the hydrogens to each side of the double bond, and it converts it to a single bond. This type of reaction is generally known as a reduction, but more specifically, this one is known as a hydrogenation. Some of you might be wondering, why are we doing this with palladium on carbon and not just straight up palladium metal or some other metal catalyst? Well, by dispersing extremely fine particles of palladium on an inert substance like carbon.
Why? Why? Stop!
And because
Stop it!
surface area is
Stop!
directly related to the rate of
Why?
reaction, this is working out quite a bit.
Leave the box
So this
alone.
reaction should work with something just like plain palladium powder, but it would be a lot slower. Some hydrogenations generate a decent amount of heat, but this one seems
got you.
relatively tame. There was no cooling or anything else that needed to be done, and I just let it sit here until it stopped absorbing hydrogen. The way that I knew it reached this point was because the balloon stopped shrinking. This usually isn't the best way to judge it though, because if there's any leak in the system, it will seem like the reaction goes on forever. But anyway, to end it, I shut the valve to the balloon and I opened up the one to my pump. Then I pulled a vacuum and I let the pump run for a few minutes to get out as much of the hydrogen as possible. When I felt that it was done, I closed the valve, took off the balloon, and refilled the system with air.
Oh,
This
it's
is
a
something to be
container,
careful with,
bro.
though, because
Wait.
the pump didn't pull out all of the
Oh.
the air could ignite some of it. It turned out fine when I did it, but I think that this part is best done with nitrogen. But anyway, now that the reaction was done, the next step was to purify out the raspberry ketone. So this whole setup was taken apart, and the first thing to do was to filter off the palladium on carbon and the sodium acetate. This was done by just passing it through some cotton in a funnel, along with some sea light. The sea light is basically just really fine sand, and it helps with the whole filtering process and to pull out the really fine particles of the palladium on carbon. After almost everything had passed through, I washed the flask and the stuff in the funnel with a bit more ethyl acetate. Then when that was all done, I did one final washing of the funnel with fresh ethyl acetate.
Okay.
I never had an issue with it, but one thing to keep in mind
what
is
else?
that palladium on carbon is pyrophoric, meaning it can spontaneously ignite in air. This can sometimes be even worse after the hydrogenation because some hydrogen gets stuck to the carbon. And what this all means is that it just has to be handled with care because it does pose a slight fire hazard. But anyway, with that all done now, I took away the funnel and I was left with this slightly yellow solution. This contained all of the raspberry ketone that I made, and to isolate it, I just had to get rid of the ethyl acetate. This was done pretty easily by just turning on the hot plate to a low heat and setting up a fan off to the side. Up until now, the smell was mostly overpowered by the ethyl acetate, but as it was evaporated off and things got more concentrated, I started to smell raspberry. It was a very faint, fruity and sweet smell, and it was a lot like blue raspberry candy. It all disappeared over the course of about 20 minutes, and eventually, when I stopped smelling ethyl acetate, I took it off the hot plate. I was left with this oily stuff, which I thought would crystallize as it cooled, but it just stayed as an oil. So to get it started, I got a glass rod, and I scraped the bottom of the beaker. It initially didn't look like much was happening,
Okay.
but slowly I started seeing crystals
Where was
forming.
I?
Then over the next 30 seconds or so, the whole thing solidified. And using this rod, I was able to crush up most of it into this off-white, yellowish powder. Pure raspberry ketone is white though, so there are clearly still some impurities left over. However, from other runs,
I can't really do any gaming-related stuff right now, unfortunately.
For this one, I added about 10 mils of water and brought it to a boil. I'm not exactly sure what temperature this happened at, but eventually, the raspberry ketone melted into an oil. Pure raspberry ketone has a melting point around 82 to 84 C, so this happened probably in that area. I then boiled the water for a couple minutes, and I took it off the hot plate. I let it cool back to
Are you as serious about game day dip as I am? Does your perfect dip slip and slide all the way to your boy's house?
What?
If you're like me, you might be asking Maddie Matheson, chef, executive producer.
I don't think I'm asking that.
About 2 years ago, I became
Oh my god, bro. You watch one science video. Suddenly everything is science related.
You might have heard about our collab with U2. It's called the 4 Flop Plush. Unlike the old 4 Plush, this guy can sit normally on your table all by itself. Now you can order it on June 27th at